everybody. This is Gigi Hyland from the National Credit Union Foundation, and I'm so lucky to be joined today by Linda Fales, who's a DE. She is the Community Development Officer at Suncoast Credit Union. And Linda, welcome. Welcome to this afternoon tea, I think, that we're having since we're both on the East Coast.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. It's so great to see you. Well, Linda, we were talking a little bit about learning about kind of the story that we're about to tell here. And Daniel Brown, my colleague, had a chance to talk to you about something completely different a few weeks ago. And then I think she called me up immediately and said, "You're not going to believe what's happening at Suncoast," and what Linda, a fellow DE, did. And she was so excited. And then she told me the story, and I got so excited. And we just wanted to capture this on video, just so you can share it with other credit unions, really to give ideas to other credit unions, and just kind of talk about, what you're doing to respond to the pandemic in this particular light. So I know you've started something amazing at Suncoast, and why don't you tell us the genesis of it? This is your story. So give me a sense of what you've created and how it came to be.
Absolutely. So for starters, I have to give credit to, of course, Kevin Johnson, our CEO, and Gary Vian, because they took this leap of faith with me when I brought this idea to them, and they've trusted and supported the initiative all the way through. And from the beginning, it wasn't like this strike of brilliance, right? It was just this just this idea that I had one day as I was driving home. But I think probably the most exciting part about this initiative that we have been so successful at is it's not this creative genius. It was just this idea, and then the idea has just blossomed. And it's specifically driven by the fact that I was thinking one day about, well, if we have all this hunger and financial wellness challenges within the communities that we serve, our staff is representative of the communities that they live in and the communities that we serve. So if the statistics are right, and you have to assume that they are, then we also have to assume that we likely have employees that are falling into some of those same challenges that those individuals in our communities are having. And so that's kind of what started the whole thing, was, coming up with this idea and saying, look, maybe we need to step back and look and see if there are resources that we could provide to our employees that they don't know that they need, or we don't know that they need because they're not really asking for it, because they don't know that some of these things are available to them. So,
and you're in the Tampa area. So, and people might not think necessarily of food insecurity in Tampa, but essentially what you're saying is, as you have gone through this pandemic, you realize that your members are struggling, your communities are struggling with food insecurity, and that your employees represent your members, and basically the same issue could be with your employees. And so you're driving home one day and you have this amazing idea. What happened? What did that idea become, and what are you doing? How did it evolve?
We started this the last quarter of last year. It's before
awesome.
The pandemic ever came.
Awesome.
Because
Cool.
It was an idea that, again, looking at communities and food insecurities and hunger, that's when it was actually perfect timing. And so what we did was, and of course we have amazing benefits, all credit unions do, 401k and all those things, but there's all these other little things that you can step back and say, well, how else can we enrich the lives of our employees, much like we want to enrich the lives of our members. So what we did was, I thought to myself, well, let's start with food, if that is an issue in the communities that we serve, because we serve a lot of rural communities, we serve a lot of outlying communities throughout the state of Florida. So what about starting with a food pantry? Or an employee resource center. And so you've got to start small so you can grow upon it. And I know some of the questions when I was talking to some of my peers about it was, well, do you really think our employees need that? Do you think we really need a food pantry? Do you really think we need a resource center? Do you think our employees really need that? And I was like, well, we won't know until we try, right? But if you read statistics, it says we're going to have it, because everybody has a story, right? And so there's a few components to our employee resource center. The first being the food pantry. So the cool part about our food pantry is it is strictly employee managed and run. Now we keep it very private because there's only myself and Mary McDonald, which is our community relations director, that actually sees and knows the employees that go through it, because we want it to maintain confidential. But when I say that it's supported by the employees, that's where all the food comes from, is from our employees. And so when we determined we were going to do that, we had to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to stock it? Where's the space going to be? And I remember Gary and Kevin saying, well, Linda, where are you going to put this pantry and how are you going to get this food? And I said, I don't know. I'll figure all that out, you know? And so we did. And what's really interesting is that we had departments that have embraced this. Like, we had a department that in Christmas time, instead of them doing a gift exchange, they opted to do a giving tree. Wow. And they were a fairly large department. So they had all of this food. So we were able to really stock our pantry with, we did a food drive, which we do, we're scheduled to do 3 of those a year, to do a regular food drive. We have other departments that they raise funds by different ways and go purchase food. We also had other funding opportunities where some employees said, you know, I don't know that I want to bring in food. Can I just donate money and you can buy things that you need that you don't realize you need? And that was such a blessing, because we had some serious situations come up where we needed formula and diapers, and we weren't, we didn't expect this, because again, everyone has a story. We only know the story at work. We don't know, you know, everyone is, you know, with children, they have children at home. They may be helping support their elderly parents or that kind of thing. So, but the beautiful thing about our pantry is nothing goes to waste, because we go in every quarter to check expiration dates on everything that's in there. And anything that's within 3 months of expiring, we donate then to another pantry or shelter so they can use it, or homeless shelter. The referral process is very easy. We have VPs that do the referral straight up to us, and we make an appointment for someone to come to the pantry, and they get the food they need, and that's pretty much it, except for the fact that we have a really candid conversation with them, you know, very low key, you know, if there's anything else we can do for you, let us know. And we also have created a resources guide that provides help with electricity, daycare, insurance, transportation, all these other things that we give to every person that goes through our pantry. And one of the things that is probably most amazing, in the first 3 months that our pantry was open, which was the last quarter of 2019, we had an impact on 48 individuals. And now that means that's the employee plus the household members, or but who would have ever thought that? And all of those people had different stories and things that that they truly were grateful. I mean, I think everyone who's come through the pantry has cried.
Well, so how does it work, Linda? So, you know, I'm just imagining this. If I'm an employee that is food insecure, and, you know, there's a level, you know, we know that money is very shameful to talk about. People don't like to talk about money. Well, people, I'm guessing, don't like to talk about being food insecure either, particularly at work. It's not sort of expected. How do you preserve the dignity of your employees, and how do you offer that sort of open door to the food pantry so that they can have access in a way that's dignified and private? What does that look like, in case other credit unions are sort of thinking, well, how could I do that? And obviously they can call you, but how do you preserve that, that dignity of the employee?
Because we keep it simple and we keep it streamlined. The VP or the manager of an employee that has a need, there's a couple of pieces. First of all, our employees know that the food pantry is available because we have it out on E3. So if an employee has a need, they know they can go to their manager and VP and say, I've got a situation. I think I need to go to the food pantry. We've kept it very confidential. Or we've actually had a couple of situations where other employees have noticed a situation with employee, and they've gone to their manager and they've said, hey, I know so-and-so is having struggles. You might want to talk to them. And we have to rely upon the fact that our managers and vice presidents are engaged with their employees and they know them. So I don't, when it gets to me, I vet nothing out. It's just, it's the managers. If they tell me the individual needs assistance, the individual is going to get it. So what happens is it stays between the person, their manager or vice president. I'm notified, and we set up a time for them to meet me at the pantry. A lot of times it's after hours, or it'll be between their lunch. And where our pantry is set up, it's kind of like in the back of a building where they can, you don't have to walk through a bunch of people to get there.
That was my other question is, how do you, again, preserve the privacy in case, because again, hard situations.
Yes, and we've kept it very quiet. And when I provide impact results and statistics, even up to our senior team, I do not provide names. I just provide numbers. And so far, we have, and with myself and Mary, because we do so much community work, we also know a lot of partners in the community, whether it's an abuse shelter or a sustainable food pantry. We're able to reach back out directly to those places and send our employees directly there, which we've, and that's a really nice handoff, because it's kept that information between us and that employee. So
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so that's the biggest thing, is to keep it kind of close to vest. Now, we've had employees being very vocal about, oh my gosh, I've gone to the food pantry. It's amazing. You guys don't know how lucky we are. And, but that's their decision to make, not ours.
That makes sense. So, and I know sort of as part of this story, you have expanded the food pantry to, as you said, an employee resource center that also now incorporates this idea of employee financial well-being. And I know, the work of the foundation that we've done over the past probably 6.5 years on financial well-being, we know that a lot of the credit unions that are really successful in doing beyond financial education to really meet members where they are in life have really started with their employees. So they recognize that, again, the employees are a snapshot of the members. And if you can help employees with financial well-being, then they are better armed to help me as a member with my financial well-being. So tell me how you added that piece on, and what does that exactly look like for Suncoast employees?
Absolutely. So we have another piece to this, which is called the Suncoast Angels, and we can talk about that probably towards the end, because they actually meet specialized needs, and they're a very confidential group when we have special situations. But and that kind of developed out of this too. But so our next step in this was, okay, so we obviously have employees that have a variety of needs, and we can sit back and assume, well, all our employees should be financially, they should be financially capable because we're a financial institution. But you can make all those assumptions, but we also know that we've got a young workforce, and they're not giving all of that financial education in high school. So you can make all these assumptions, but the only way to really know is to ask. So what we decided to do was create our own financial wellness survey, which we also delivered the last quarter of 2019.
Okay.
And we had a almost 50%, like 49.7% response rate to that survey. It was amazing. And and it had, so I took a variety of surveys, and then we had some things that were Suncoast that we, embedded in it. And the results from that was so telling. And so we found out some things we thought we knew we didn't know, and some things we thought we knew we were correct on. But what we did is we took the survey, and then we took the 4 primary topics that rose to the top, which everyone felt like they wanted to know more about, and we created a roadmap for this year. Well, then of course COVID came, so we're a little bit behind on our roadmap, but we took those items for every quarter to roll out information on those topics: financial education and financial literacy, how to be better stewards of my money, how to understand credit better, retirement and investments. Every month, every quarter, it's something different. So, and we're executing all of that throughout this year. And so that was another piece of it. Then the next thing we realized, and then of course COVID came. Well, when COVID came, we realize there's yet another whole layer of resources out there that our employees may need to know about that they don't know. For example, I discovered that whether a child was on free lunch program or not, during the end of this last school year, like USDA, all these children could get free lunches. Mm-hmm. They could go and pick up free lunches, and a lot of our employees didn't realize that. So we made that publication, through our.
That's awesome.
And it's not, and we made sure that everyone know, hey, it's all children. Let your families know, let your friends know, let your neighbors know, because this is food that you can get, for all of these children, while they're trying to teach at home and all these things. Right. There were a lot of other resources that we published during that time sporadically, like how to cope with a crisis, how to maintain good credit, or how to maintain your credit during a crisis, what bills should you pay, how to get ahead of derogatory credit. In other words, reaching out to your creditors first before they reach out to you. So we were putting all of that information out for our employees, and so we've got what we call E3, which is our intranet page, and we were putting all that information out there. And then we quickly realized that we need our own employee resource center page. So we're in the process of creating that now, so that all of this information will be on there.
Sort of one place. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, and we're going to be putting Enrich out there soon. So we're super excited about that. That's our
cool.
next month. It'll be introduced to everyone. And
which is a great financial well-being digital offering by Enrich, in case people aren't familiar with it, that really helps people think through their financial well-being. It's got a lot of different modules and different things for them to work through. To be very proactive around managing your financial life. Yeah, that's great.
Right. And so we have a few others, and we have webinars and, those kind of things that we make available to them, so that they can go in their privacy of their own home and look up information they want that way.
So what were, again, this is still, it hasn't been on the ground for that long, almost a year, I guess, if you kind of count the last quarter of last year. What were the biggest challenges, and what were the key takeaways that you've learned so far? Knowing this is an evolution and you continue to grow this effort, which is phenomenal. What were the biggest challenges, and what are the key takeaways that you would say?
I would say it wasn't really a challenge as much as I would call it opportunity, right? So it was figuring out how to make this idea work, and how to navigate through, they weren't really hurdles. They were just kind of like little bumps in the road. For example, we've got all of these branches, and they're collecting food. How am I going to get the food up here? I even had a number of people going, okay, now how are you going to do that? I'm like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll rent a van. I don't know. I'll figure, when there's a will, there's a way, right? My grandmother used to always tell me that. So it was just kind of figuring out, how to work through it, but then at the same time, don't think you've got to do everything all at one time. You can take it in piecemeal. And so the challenge was kind of figuring out, what we want to do, when we want to do it, how to best execute it, and don't get discouraged. Figure a way. Just always figure a way. I think the takeaways were probably keeping it simple as you possibly can, making the information that we're sharing with our employees relevant, be creative. I have the ability, and I've done it, to ship food or to get food, packaged food in the pantry, and get it 3 hours away to our branches down south. I've been able to do that before. And I've even had people, well, how are you going to get it to some of our branches? I don't know. When it happens, I'll figure it out. Don't get hung up in all the details, be flexible, be willing to learn as you go. And if something doesn't work, try something else, because this is it's a work in progress. And probably the biggest thing I would say for most credit unions, if a food pantry seems like too much, then start with a food cabinet.
Yep.
Start with something smaller, start with the basics. If you don't want a full-blown financial wellness survey, do a small survey that maybe asks just a few questions, things that you want to know, and start smaller. And use don't reinvent the wheel. Use resources that are available, like Enrich.
Right.
Why go trying to recreate all this great stuff when it's right there and it's just a fingertip away, right?
Right. Right.
And
one of the things I was going to say, one of the things you mentioned when we were before we started recording was, obviously Suncoast is a big credit union. Suncoast has a lot of bandwidth, a lot of assets, a lot to bring to the table. And I think one of the things you said to me is I wouldn't want any credit union to be dissuaded from doing something similar, or sort of taking this lesson and implementing it where they are, this idea, because of asset size. And I think one thing that you said that was really interesting is, start with where the need is, and you can start small and build upon it. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that. So if I'm a smaller credit union, how might you think of that, and what would you say to other asset size credit unions with this idea, just two questions. What would you say to smaller credit unions, but also the impact? What are you seeing as the impact on employees, and why is it worth taking this step and trying this idea out?
Well, first of all, the impact has been tremendous. Our employees have the feedback by both the people that have received resources, been to the food pantry, and received financial education or financial capability. The feedback has been totally positive. Thank you so much. I had no idea. This is great information. One of the things we are in the process, we're fixing to roll it out next week. We actually have spent a great deal of time researching every county in the whole state of Florida with all the resources that we're going to have, like a resource library that anybody can go and click. And if you need electricity, here's where you go, or, rent, and we're going to have that where we can even have it available for our members. But that's like a way down the line thing. That's taken us, right? But the biggest piece is whether it's impacting those employees that are receiving benefit, but the other side to that is the employees that are contributing to it. They're also, they feel that love because they're part of something bigger than themselves, and they know they're helping their peers. And that, it's not just with the food donations, but mind you, because some of our employees are helping facilitate some of these presentations for our employees. So, it's like everybody helping everybody. It's the whole people helping people philosophy. So it's just an internal thing. But when it comes to smaller credit unions, I always say baby steps are still steps forward. You don't have to take giant ones. Baby steps are still steps forward, right? So even with a smaller, credit union, like I said, you don't have to have a pantry. You can just have a cabinet. And if you have an employee that has you find out someone has a need, you can have a few things there, and you don't have to go full scale. But when it comes to financial wellness, there's so many resources out there that they can utilize without reinventing the wheel. Start there. And you would be very surprised. And the biggest thing is the employees, once the employees see that they are just as important as the members we serve, there's an impact there as well. So, my goal, which I don't know that I'll ever see it, would be for our food pantry that we would be able to one day open it up to the smaller credit unions. That would be like amazing. But it's doable. You just have to figure out how, and you have to figure out to what scale that how is for your credit union.
Well, I love what you're saying, Linda, just kind of as a wrap up, because, we know that there are so many social issues out there that people deal with, whether it be food insecurity, whether it be transportation, whether it be, lack of affordable housing. There's just so many issues that are out there. And when you think about people's financial well-being, employees included, they might enter the door of financial well-being through food insecurity, and yet money sort of flows through all of this. Financial well-being flows through all of this. And so I love that you've met people where they are in life, starting with food insecurity, and sought resources to help them, and then incorporated the financial well-being as part of that, and then also recognized that Suncoast has so many partners in all of the counties, basically in the state of Florida, that you can rely on for their expertise. And you mentioned, domestic abuse or housing or a variety of other things, that you're leveraging those partnerships in a way that really serve as true resources for employees. And I think for other credit unions, that's very doable. Knowing your community and knowing who else is in your community that can help your employees, regardless of what issue they might be facing, and offering that to them is great. So I love the way you've built it kind of a step at a time, starting with the food insecurity and then really understanding that the financial well-being part is so interwoven into all of this. It's just great. What last words of wisdom would you give to a credit union that's hearing your story and Suncoast story? What else would you say as kind of a closing remark on this awesome story?
The Titanic was built by experts and the Ark was built by amateurs. So I live by that. And this project.
Outstanding. That's great.
Yeah, and I live by that because sometimes, you're going into things and you're like, well, I'm not the professional at this. And it's like, well, I always refer back, So, don't be fearful of trying something don't be afraid to fail, because all you do is brush yourself off and try something else, because nothing's ever a failure. A failure just gives you an opportunity to try again. And if we're really doing it for the right reasons, it wasn't a failure to begin with, because you're going back to the drawing board and you're finding a way to say yes, or you're finding a way to make it work. And it's not always going to be easy, or it's not always going to be pleasant. And there are times where when we even go in the community, it's hard. It hurts your heart to see what's going on. But if you find a way to make a difference, then that's all that matters. And so sometimes you have to work a little bit harder, and it's awesome. All worth it. Yep. Well,
those are certainly words of wisdom to close on. So thank you, Linda. Thank you for sharing the story, and thank you for your time. What a great story to share with other credit unions, to hopefully inspire them to do other things, but also to learn and to see what they can do in their own communities, knowing there's so much need out there and employees equally need support as communities. So kudos to you on taking an idea and running with it and making it live and real and growing. So way to go. That's awesome to hear.
Thank you. And have them call me, and any of them that are in Florida, we will be more than happy to share that resource guide that we're creating. We will be more than happy to share that, because the more people that are made aware of things like that, the better we can improve our communities.